Esoteric is a common concept and very capacious, describing the entire spectrum of topics and interests. So when I sometimes say to someone that I'm interested in esotericism, I often see the expression of misunderstanding on the face of the interlocutor, who simply has no idea what this esoteric is. So I thought it's worthwhile to write these few sentences about what esoteric is. Esoteric, the etymology of the word. The meaning of the word esoteric comes from the Greek esoterikos and esotero. This word meant everything internal. Plato used in his works the term ta eso, meaning what is internal. On the contrary to ta eso was the use of this ta exo, which means what is external. Esotericism originally referred mainly to the internal world and what was implicit, unavailable outside, etc. Esoteric, the origin of modern meaning. We owe today's concept of the word esoteric to the work of 19th century scholars and seekers of spiritual rules. The term esotericism popularized in the 19th century such figures as Eliphas Levi, 1810–1875, or Madame Blavatsky, 1831–1891, and other members of the Theosophical Society. Esoteric was related to secret things, or secret knowledge held in hiding for various reasons, not to expose its holders to persecution by the religious and other institutions, and so that knowledge does not fall into the wrong hands, and often simply because of certain elitism and the requirements of possessing appropriate predispositions for its proper understanding and assimilation. So we have practically the sign of equality between the notions of esotericism and the term secret knowledge. Esoteric knowledge in practice concerned the spiritual spheres of a man, the so-called psychic, supernatural, metaphysical sphere, etc. Esoteric deal with this understanding of exploring knowledge about the spiritual nature of man and the opportunities that this knowledge brings. Esoteric is looking for tools and techniques to use the spiritual nature of a human being and its qualities for achieving various specific goals. Esotericism is therefore a vastly capacious concept and contains a whole range of fields of interest in the field of parapsychology, psychotronics, magic, mysticism, spiritual healing, prophecy, divinatory fields, predicting the future, etc. Esoteric today. Today's meaning of the esoteric concept has changed, however, very much. Although esotericism still describes the above-mentioned areas, it has ceased to be associated with the concept of secret knowledge. Today, esoteric does not mean what is hidden, and does not give information that is somehow secret or inaccessible. On the contrary, knowledge that was once only available to selected people has so far popularized and made public that it has lost any attributes of elitism, secrecy, etc. Esotericism, however, still requires certain predispositions depending on the esoteric field, and above all requires certain intellectual predispositions, because it is not always easy to understand for every human being. However, it is available to everyone at your fingertips today. The internet is full of esoteric texts once known only to chosen ones, today being part of our everyday life. Similarly, libraries and bookstores are now full of what for our ancestors was an inaccessible object of a hidden secret. The popularization of esoteric knowledge has brought both good and less than good results, as is the case with any universal knowledge. On the one hand, esoteric gives people access to a very wide spectrum of knowledge about the spiritual nature of a human being, and allows them to get to know themselves and the world around from the once inaccessible side. On the other hand, this knowledge lying in front of everyone at your fingertips is not always well understood and not always well used, and often its further message is burdened with low-quality interpretation of subsequent unselected and completely random self-proclaimed people who decide to teach esoteric knowledge. There are finally and still operating various more or less secret groups and elite associations, but these are no longer such an attraction that they had in themselves in the past ages, and often glorify and conceal knowledge that is already available, and sometimes knowledge that it had justification and application in the past ages, but today it is simply out of date. Of course, members of such societies argue that it is worth spending years climbing the ranks of their hierarchy to get the dubious privilege of access to deeper knowledge, gradually dispensing them and meticulously separated, but in my opinion, the whole game is not worth the candle, and much more likely to have such a person if it wastes years, it will become addicted to people in such groups, and the profit will be almost none of this. Therefore, I think that in general it is wonderful that today so much esoteric knowledge is in the public domain and is available to everyone. You do not have to ask anybody anymore and to blame to get access to these messages. Just if a man is at such a stage of his path, he can reach for esoteric knowledge whenever he wants. For my part, I would have wished for a higher level of this education because, as I said before, the level of communication is very bad because every single one of them is grabbed by it, and everybody thinks of himself as a great and wonderful master in a given field, while the esoteric knowledge only barely he licked. Well, that's digressions. It is important that in society there has been some progress in access to knowledge, and access to knowledge is one of the basic and most important for human values. Therefore, access to esoteric knowledge is a wonderful thing. If you like this material, please click like button and subscribe to my channel for more inspiring materials in the future. And remember to be awesome.